Okay, I'm going to call to order the Board of Directors regular meeting for the Clean Energy Alliance for January 25th, 2024. We have a new board secretary, Kaylin, if you will call the roll.
Board Member Garcia. Here. Board Becker. Here. Board Member Sanchez. Vice Chair Musgrove.
Here.
Chair Drucker.
Here.
Noting Board Member Melendez is absent.
Okay, thank you very much. Next, Christian, if you will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
You stand, face the flag. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic which stands one nation.
Okay, next on the agenda is board comments and announcements. I'm going to move that to the end so that we can, and this will be somewhat of a brief meeting, but my understanding is that Board Member Bob Patel is joining us remotely, and she needs to confirm her attendance and that type of attendance via the Brown Act.
Board Member Bhat Patel.
Katie, right here.
Yes, thank you. I need to participate remotely for a just cause, and that is because my son is sick and due to childcare reasons, and so I am participating remotely, and I have no other individuals in the room that are 18 years of age or older that are present here with me.
Thank you very much, Priya. So next is the Clean Energy Alliance Board of Directors appointment of chair and vice chair for calendar year 2024.
I have a motion, Chair, if I may.
Okay, go ahead.
Within our bylaws, we're allowed to serve 2 consecutive terms without a break. And at this point, I would like to recommend that we retain Chair Drucker as the chair of the Clean Energy Alliance.
I have a second.
Any discussion?
I would like to just say that I appreciate Member Musgrove for his vice chair capacity. So I would be happy for him to stay as vice chair as well.
Well,
I think we have a motion on the floor.
yeah, we have a motion on the floor right now and appreciate the trust that you have in me, Ed.
Yes.
So with that, we will call the roll.
Board Member Garcia.
Aye.
Board Becker.
Yes.
Board Member Melendez. Board Member Sanchez. Board Member Bhat Patel.
Aye.
Vice Chair Musgrove.
Aye.
Chair Drucker.
Yes. Okay, so with that, Ed is my understanding.
This is not a hostile takeover. I've requested the chair to step down from the vice chair in lieu of a second year. So then that would leave it open for nomination for that position.
And so therefore, I'm going to ask Katie to become the vice chair. There's 2 reasons for that is 1, we want to have some continuity, but 2, we want, and Katie's been with us for quite some time now. Number 2 is it's nice to have a rotation, shall we say, between the coastal cities, the inland cities, large cities, small cities. And therefore, I'd like Katie, if possible, to accept to become the vice chair.
I'll second if that's a motion, Chair.
Yes, it is.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I didn't realize you had been on for 2 terms, Ed. So thank you for serving, and I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Great. If Kaylin will call the roll.
Board Member Garcia.
Aye.
Board Member Becker.
Yes.
Board Member Melendez. Board Member Sanchez. Board Member Bhat Patel.
Aye.
Board Member Musgrove.
Thank you. Aye.
Chair Drucker.
Yes. Great. I really appreciate, again, the trust that you have in me, and I look forward to working with Katie. It's a little bit more work than just attending these meetings once a month. So, but it is this fun and exciting stuff that we get to do. So next, we have presentations, and we have very exciting news today because we have a whole gaggle of new Clean Energy Alliance staff, and really appreciate them all showing up today. And so Barbara, I think you're going to introduce them all, correct?
Yes, thank you, Chair Drucker. We do have a gaggle of new staff that we would like to introduce. And so if they don't mind standing up and maybe coming up to the front, and I'll begin introducing. First, I'll introduce Emily Fabic. Emily joins Clean Energy Alliance as our first regulatory analyst. She will be responsible for Clean Energy Alliance's regulatory compliance and regulatory advocacy, working with our regulatory attorneys and providing legislative tracking and advocacy. She brings experience in regulatory and compliance areas, most recently with San Diego Gas and Electric as regulatory case manager, policy and proceedings. She holds a Master of Business Administration from Point Park University, Bachelor of Arts from in Business Management major, University of Pittsburgh, and a very proud Carlsbad resident. So, Emily. Next, I'd like to introduce Rob Howard. Rob is one of our 2 key accounts program managers that has been hired to work with Clean Energy Alliance. Responsibilities include customer communications and outreach, implementation of programs, and relationships with key accounts. Rob comes to us with over 20 years in the energy field, most notably with Southern California Edison, and is very active in the North County community. He has served on the California State University San Marcos University Council, North Coastal Prevention Coalition, Palomar College African American Advisory Council, and City of Oceanside Police and Fire Commission. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Workforce Education and Development from Southern Illinois University and a very proud Oceanside resident. So welcome, Rob. Next, I'd like to introduce Caitlin McGee. Caitlin joined us as our second Key Accounts and Program Manager. She brings community choice aggregation or CCE experience, having been with Clean Power San Francisco when they launched their program in 2016, okay. She also worked with the city of Pico Rivera as manager of their Office of Sustainability and oversaw their community choice energy program Prime. Most recently, she was with the California Independent System Operator, also known as CAISO, as their senior stakeholder of engagement and policy specialist. Caitlin holds a Master of Public Administration from San Francisco State University and a Bachelor of Arts in Urban Studies and Planning, also from SFSU. And she is just north of San Diego County, but I'm sure we'll be able to drag her down. So welcome, Caitlin. Next is Kaylin McCauley. Kaylin joins us as our first board secretary administrative assistant. Her responsibilities include managing the board meetings, the agenda process, handling board and staff administrative needs, records management, and the conflict of interest Form 700s that we all love to do. She brings experience from the city of Carlsbad, where she was the deputy city clerk. She handled very similar functions there, as well as has had experience working in the city manager's office and human resources. Kaylin holds a Master of Public Administration from SDSU, bachelor's degree in political science administration from UC Irvine, and she is a very proud Vista resident. So welcome, Kaylin. Next is our newest employee, and he's so new, he's actually not really effective until Monday. But he's happy to be here, and he joins us as Power Procurement Manager. His responsibility will include managing Clean Energy Alliance's energy forecast, power procurement, and compliance requirements. He brings 5 years' experience advising public entities and corporates on procurement, commercial terms, and financing of energy for water, environmental, and other related projects with Ernst & Young's Infrastructure Advisory Team. Dan holds a Master of Public Policy from Harvard University, John F. Kennedy School of Government, a Bachelor of Arts from Bowdoin College, and is a very proud Delmartian. Welcome, Dan. Last is our new Chief Executive Officer, who will join us beginning next Thursday. And Greg is leaving his position of city manager of the city of Solana Beach, where he implemented the very first community choice energy program in San Diego County and SDG&E territory, and ran that for until they joined Clean Energy Alliance. So we look forward to his leadership and working with this really great team. So thank you, Chair.
First of all, welcome aboard. We have increased our staff by thousands of percent here. And it's exciting to see the CEA. CEA has been around now for 5 years. And to see the CEA finally have some permanent staff that can work with us and grow this organization, especially as we bring on Vista and Oceanside. We look forward to having you present and meet with us and build this great organization. So thank you very much. Any other comments?
A lot of talent out there.
Yeah, you're taking on a big task, especially as the first in your position. So we're looking forward to some really excellent work. And as with all of us here that are elected, you'll be carrying the heavy loads for us. And as I like to say, keeping us out of the soup. So we appreciate that very much.
And I'll just say thank you all for being here and for being dedicated to serving the public.
And I'll just echo that. Thank you guys so much. Congratulations.
Again, thank you very much. Now we move on to public comment, and this is the time when any member of the public can speak on an item that is not on the agenda. And Kaylin, if you will be more specific about the oral comments.
Members of the public can address the board on items on the agenda at the time the item is being addressed or during public comment for topics that are not listed on the agenda. Speakers are limited to 3 minutes each. In conformance with the Brown Act, no board action can occur on items presented during public comment. If you desire to speak during public comment, please fill out a speaker card and submit it to the board secretary. When you are called to speak, please come forward to the podium and state your name. To address the board regarding an item on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card and submit it to the board secretary before the board chair announces the item. At this time, we do not have any non-agenda public speakers.
Great, thank you very much. So next we go to the consent calendar. And Kaylin, we didn't chat about this, but if you will read the titles of each of the, not just the titles of each of the items on the consent calendar, I'd appreciate that.
Sure. Item 2, Clean Energy Alliance Treasurer's Report for September 2023. Item 3, Clean Energy Alliance Treasurer's Report for October 2023. Item 4, Clean Energy Alliance Treasurer's Report for November 2023. Item 5, consider approval of 2024 legislative and regulatory policy platform. Item 6, reappointment of Clean Energy Alliance City of Carlsbad Community Advisory Committee member Paige DeCino for term through December 31st, 2024. And item 7, receive Clean Energy Alliance Chief Executive Officer operational report.
Thank you. Are there any items that anybody on the board would like to have removed? Okay, seeing none, are there any items that anybody would like to add to the consent calendar? Very good. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I would move approval.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Will you please call the roll, Kaylin?
Board Member Garcia,
Aye.
Board Member Becker,
Yes.
Board Member Musgrove,
Aye.
Board Member Sanchez, Board Member Bhat Patel,
Aye.
Vice Chair Melendez,
Aye.
Chair Druker.
Yes. Very good. We go on to item 8, which is the receive regulatory update from Keys and Fox. And I assume they are presenting this remotely today. Is that correct? Yes. Very good.
Thank you, Chair Druker. Yes, we have Tim Lindell from Keys and Fox, who is our regulatory attorney. And there he is. And Tim, if you don't mind presenting from there, you should be able to share your screen and bring it up. And we can't hear you. So I think you're still on mute. He says he's off mute. Hmm. I think it's on your end, Tim.
Do the earbuds help? Can you hear me
Yes.
now?
Yes.
Okay. Apologies for the technical difficulties. Let me bring up the slides here, please. Okay, can you see my screen bar or my screen bar?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you all very much for having me again. My name is Tim Lindell. I'm a partner at Keys and Fox. We are your regulatory counsel. I want to say welcome to Greg and thank you to Barb and welcome to Emily. It is really exciting to have a regulatory analyst, someone that we can work with closely here. So certainly looking forward to all of that. It has been a while since we all talked together, since September, in fact. So I'm going to go a little bit longer than normal, but I promise we'll still be under 10 minutes here. We have some exciting updates for you. We want to discuss two important wins. We want to talk about 2024's PCIA rates, power charge indifference adjustment rates. And then we will hit it and quit, as they say, on three other updates that we've presented in prior meetings and just give you a status update on those. So first, we're going to start with the integrated resource planning proceeding. You may recall from September discussing this case. In this case, the Commission had ordered SDG&E to purchase RA, or resource adequacy capacity, based on the load share SDG&E would serve in 2023.
Excuse
However,
me, Tim.
as you know, yes,
Can you enlarge your slides just a bit?
absolutely.
Thank you. Sorry to
No
interrupt.
problem. No problem. And I apologize I couldn't be there today. Our firm is having a retreat this week, so I am coming to
That's
you
much
pretty
better.
remotely.
Thank you. Yeah, much
Okay,
better.
no
Thank you.
problem. Apologies. Okay. So as you know, Escondido and San Marcos were departing in 2023. So to prevent the situation where those customers and others that were departing from San Diego County would pay for capacity from which they would receive no benefits, essentially pay twice for the same capacity, the Commission ordered SDG&E to convey a piece of the capacity that SDG&E had procured to Clean Energy Alliance to cover those departures. However, by using an outdated forecast, one that would suggest Escondido and San Marcos would stay with SDG&E in 2023, the utility tried to get out from that requirement, despite other utilities, frankly, faithfully implementing the intent of that decision. Clean Energy Alliance and San Diego Community Power jointly filed a petition to avoid the $100 to $200 million in extra costs we would have incurred to, again, double procure the same capacity for the same customers. In September, I reported that the Commission had sided with SDG&E on this issue in what's called a proposed decision. However, thanks to a Herculean effort from Barb, the San Diego Community Power Regulatory Team, our experts, and a handful of folks at our firm, we were able to get that proposed decision completely reversed this past December. So SDG&E is now required to convey 13 megawatts of RA capacity to Clean Energy Alliance, filing an advice letter by April 1st, showing the contracts that had been signed and the RA had been conveyed. So good news on that one. The second update I have for you has to do with the Diablo Canyon Nuclear Power Plant. In 2022, the legislature signed a bill that can only, frankly, be called a pretty sweetheart deal for PG&E. This massive power plant will remain open through 2030. The reason it will remain open is because it is taking longer for clean and renewable projects that we need to meet our greenhouse gas goals to come online. At the same time, electrification is driving up demand for electricity. So the legislature was concerned there would be a shortage of capacity if Diablo Canyon came offline between now in 2020 or it came offline in 2025 as it was expected to come offline. The reason I call it a sweetheart deal is Diablo Canyon will remain open with zero risks to PG&E shareholders. The utility can literally mismanage the plant, and there will be a special fund to make sure PG&E is whole if that happens. So all risks here to keeping this plant open are going to be borne by ratepayers, including Clean Energy Alliance's ratepayers. So we worked with CEA's trade association, CalCCA in this case. Our argument was that if CEA's customers are going to pay to keep this plant open, then its customers should receive the RA capacity and other attributes from the plant. PG&E took what, in my mind, was a rather unreasonable and self-interested position of saying, no, thank you, we'll keep it for ourselves. Now, this is not a small issue. Diablo Canyon, again, is a massive power plant, over 2,200 megawatts, about 4 times as large as the next largest plant in California. And so PG&E's position would have caused LSEs to replace the capacity from Diablo Canyon, even though the plant would still be operating. The cost of replacing all of that capacity runs $2 billion between 2025 and 2030. Fortunately, we banded together with some unlikely allies in this case, including Southern California Edison and San Diego Gas and Electric, and we won on this issue in a decision this past December. So we will now get a piece of the capacity, the system RA capacity from Diablo Canyon. We'll start to see that be allocated to Clean Energy Alliance this summer for the year ahead RA compliance period of 2025. Okay, moving on to the next one. So moving on to the ERA case. The ERA stands for Energy Resource Recovery Account case. This is a recurring docket that sets both the PCIA rate, the power charge and difference adjustment rate your customers will pay in 2024, and the rates SDG&E's customers will pay, mainly their generation rates. Sophisticated customers pay very close attention to the differentials between those rates, and there were 2 issues at play in this case addressing those rates. First, as you may recall from our primer on how the PCI works, if SDG&E has RA capacity that it cannot sell, that capacity is called unsold RA. It's valued at $0, meaning the PCIA would go up. If SDG&E sells that capacity, it's valued at the sales price, meaning the PCIA would go down. Here, in this case, SDG&E under forecasted RA it would sell, which would have resulted in the PCIA going up. We fought back against that forecast, arguing the utility was not taking into account the strong market for purchasing such capacity in California these days. The judge and the commission sided with us, and the PCIA came down as a result. Simultaneously, I'm sure many of you saw the large decrease in bundled customer generation rates, so the rates that SDG&E charges to their generation customers. SDG&E had been attributing the drop in those rates to a reduction in forward wholesale market prices. While it is true the forecasted wholesale prices in 2024 are lower than those used to set rates in 2023, the impact from that change is actually pretty small. In reality, the reason these rates came down is a big drop in the gen rate caused by something called a balancing account. A balancing account makes sure that if a utility collects less than it should from its bundled customers, it can raise rates by the same amount the following year. So that's actually what happened in 2022. In 2022, SDG&E undercollected by more than $100 million, which raised bundled rates last year by $100 million. Stated technically, rates in 2023, last year's rates reflected an amortization of a large undercollection in the ERA balancing account. In 2024, that increase rolled out of the balancing account, meaning their rates came down because that undercollection, the increase in rates to account for the undercollection went away. Simultaneously, you had a $90 million overcollection last year, which also brings the generation rates down. So this is essentially a double whammy in terms of a reduction in SDG&E's generation rates. That accounts for more than the 4.5 cent per kilowatt hour rate decrease you're seeing in SDG&E's gen rates between last year and this year. Unfortunately, in an ERA case, there's little you can do about that kind of a thing. Those are the numbers, and the numbers kind of wash through, and we end up with the rates. However, if all else stays equal, now that those ERA balances have been amortized off this year, rates in 2025 should go back up, all other things equal. So probably not rising to the levels we saw in 2023, but they should go back up if all other things remain equal. Okay, those are the major updates. Some quick hits on some cases that we had already updated you on in the past. You may recall from our July update that the Public Utilities Commission issued a decision that would prohibit CCAs from expanding if they have been short on system RA. The CEA's Trade Association, CalCCA, filed an application for rehearing of that decision, and to no one's surprise, the commission denied that application for rehearing. The commission's reasoning is pretty extreme. It suggests that it can regulate anything that impacts utility customers. You know, that type of conclusion would seem to open up the CPUC's ability to regulate most things for CCAs. So it seems like a pretty large jurisdictional overreach from my perspective. The denial of the application for the rehearing by the commission allows parties to appeal the decision. It's the first thing you have to do in order before you can go and appeal in state court. No appeal has been filed yet, but that remains an option. The demand flexibility case, the second bullet on this slide, is somewhat misnamed because it is considering something that is the opposite of something that would make people have flexible demand and change their demand, and that is really large fixed charges. This is the infamous controversial topic of income graduated fixed charges. In this case, a number of parties had originally proposed some seriously high fixed charges for the highest earners in California. However, the commission and others soon realized that there wasn't a good way to verify people's incomes. The commission, wasn't a franchise tax board. It doesn't have access to people's incomes. And so the parties came back, like the utilities came back with much more simplified proposals that are essentially split based on whether you are a care customer or a non-care customer. So the proposed fixed charge right now is $34 per month for care customers and $73 per month for non-care customers. That's currently the proposal that we see before the commission today. For those of us that follow these types of things, this case is kind of nothing new. The utilities have longed for these large fixed charges for a long time. So what was supposed to be a new, interesting type of charge is really just the utilities trying to get really large increases to their existing fixed charges. We should see a proposed decision on this is anticipated in Q1 of this year. All right, and my last update has to do with SDG&E's general rate cases. So there's two types of rate cases. There's the phase one rate case. That is, how much revenue does SDG&E need to earn in order to cover its expenses plus a reasonable return? So that is, how large the pie is, you might say. And then the phase two is, okay, how do we divide that up among the different ratepayers? So that is, how do how big are the different slices of pie for residential customers versus commercial versus industrial? In the phase one rate case, the issue that we litigated is that SDG&E is putting new storage on one of its existing plants and wants to put the cost of that storage onto all CCA customers, despite the fact that they are really only procuring that for their existing bundled customers. We've fought hard against that. We've submitted briefs on this at this point. We are just waiting for our proposed decision. So that's the phase one. On the phase two, I tried to edit the slide at the last second there, and it got a little mixed up. So apologies. That says key issue, rate and tariff design as it relates to unfair bill presentation. So what that issue essentially is that SDG&E presents the PCIA and the care discount in a somewhat misleading manner on their bills. For example, they make it look like only SDG&E customers get the care discount, while it really applies to both CEA's customers and care customers at the same time. So we just submitted testimony on that issue a couple of weeks ago. We are awaiting SDG&E's rebuttal testimony, and then we'll see where that case goes in the coming month. And that is it from the Keys and Fox team. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. I appreciate the summary way you've presented this, Tim, this time. And so with that, are there questions from the board? Go ahead, Ed.
Thank you, Tim. In one of your slides, you referenced Q1. Are we talking about calendar year or fiscal year beginning July 1st, or is it the federal of October?
calendar year. So we should see that between now and March.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Go ahead, Katie.
Thank you, Tim, for the presentation. I had a question about the CARES issue. So their presentation of the CARES discount is misleading, but they are still issuing it to all customers. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Very good. Are there any members of the public that have submitted speaker slips to speak on this?
We do not have any speakers for item 8.
Okay, very good. We don't need a motion. This is a presentation. Does anybody have any comments on this, though? See, go ahead. No? Okay. Tim, really, again, appreciate your presentation today. Look forward to seeing you next month, we hope.
Yes, thank you. I'll see you in person.
Great. Thank you very much. Next, we go on to item 9, which is receive reports from the Community Advisory Committee Subcommittee on 2023 accomplishments. Is Dwight going to present that or you, Barbara?
Thank you, Chair. We'll actually hear presentations from subcommittee members themselves, including from Dwight, our Dwight Warden, who is the alternate board member for Del Mar and has served as the chair of the Community Advisory Committee. During 2023, the Community Advisory Committee voluntarily selected specific topics in which to create subcommittees to really focus on and work on and identify issues and then solutions for those issues. Those ad hoc subcommittees included local programs, outreach to communities of concern, electric vehicles, and later in the year, they added 2 additional ad hoc subcommittees, school outreach and green by 2035. We do have several of our Community Advisory Committee members here with us. I would like to state who the members were of each of the subcommittees, and then if you could stand up and identify or be recognized if I call your name. And then Paige DeCino will be providing the report on local programs. So the first one is local programs. The chair of that ad hoc subcommittee was Rick Paul, and the other members included Paige DeCino, Jennifer Kirschbaum, Dolores Davies Jameson, Tracy Reed, and Roger Davenport. I'd like to add that the Community Advisory Committee is a volunteer committee. They met every other month during the year, but then met separately as subcommittees and volunteered on those subcommittees. Our Community Advisory Committee is made up of 14 appointed members and the chair, Dwight Warden. They're very enthusiastic. They've been active. They are really excited about the future with Clean Energy Alliance and the opportunities that it brings. And with that, I'd like to introduce Paige DeCino, who will provide the report on local programs.
Hello. I'm happy to be here reporting on one of my subcommittees. So our local program subcommittee was, our mission statement was to evaluate and propose potential programs to further the equitable implementation of the member organization's climate action plans. So the first thing we did was to create a spreadsheet of all the CAP measures from the 7 jurisdictions so that we could potentially look for some common overlap that we could focus on. Then we surveyed 5 of the largest and oldest CCAs in the state for their programs that we might be interested in replicating. And we have that information somewhere. So we recommended to the board last year 2 things. First of all, that we consider a program for mobile homes with sub-meters to use participate energy to install solar plus storage, which will entail feed-in tariff, which you have approved by now. This was almost a year ago now. And then also to create a zero loan program for electrical panel upgrade up to $10,000. And this was kind of one of the other CCAs had already done that. So that's the extent of our work, our report. Any questions?
Great, thank you. Any questions for Paige?
I just want to say thank you for pulling that all together. And I haven't had a chance to look at it, but I know that that would be something for our new 2 program managers to look at as well, that you've looked at all the other CCAs and got some good ideas, I'm sure. So thank you for that.
Sure.
Paige, real quickly, having had to upgrade a panel to install a electric cooktop
Right, yeah.
induction.
Well,
It gets very expensive at any type of upgrade to a panel.
well, I think our thought was, Rick's not here, but was that to upgrade the panel for what, no matter what, like electric upgrade, just to do it so that you can prepare for further, energy efficiency measures.
Excellent idea. Thank
Yeah.
you very much for that work.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
The next ad hoc subcommittee to report is the outreach to communities of concern. This ad hoc subcommittee was chaired by Dwight Warden. Members included Deborah Shade, Paige DeCino, Nancy Oshley, and Ron Ishii. Dwight.
Thank you, Barbara. First, as the CAC chair, since its inception, let me say you've got a group of talented people on this group, and it was really a pleasure to work with them. And Barbara Boswell was fantastic, and I hope you keep it going and challenge them with more work. I wanted to note too, the new members folded in seamlessly. Started with just the original 3 cities and 6 people, and now we're up. But so that was a pleasure to see, and that's largely attributable to Barbara. Again, overall, these are interim reports. All of these things are continuing to be worked on. And one way that I would suggest you look at all of them is like a table of contents or reference sheet for things that you may want to know more about. And in the highest level global perspective, what we looked at is someday the CEA is going to have money and it's going to be able to have met its reserve requirements and be able to spend money on programs. And we wanted to help you craft what might those programs be and how can we carry them out. So we had a programs committee for that. The other thing we looked at is what are just some of the key nuts and bolts things that have to work for us to meet our collective greenhouse reduction goals. How do we roll out EV electric cars and charging stations in a way that will work? So we had a committee on that, but that was the 2 overall goals. How do we turn the levers on the system to make CEA respond? And what are our thoughts on what you could do with your money when you have some? Okay, going to that, the committee that I chaired was the outreach to underserved communities. And this is part of the mission statement of CEA is to have diversity and equity. And one of the requirements of the Joint Powers Agreement is that when you do have money and start spending it on programs, that it has to be equitably distributed across all the member cities in rough proportion to their electrical load. So we tried to start off with, okay, who are the disadvantaged communities or demographics that we would want to help? We looked at a variety of definitions for that. The one we came down with that seemed to work for Clean Energy Alliance is anybody who faces additional barriers to get to 100% clean energy compared to the typical CEA customer. So that might be somebody or people living in an apartment house where they're just renters and the owner of the building isn't inclined to sign them up for what they want to do. How do we address that? It might be a tribal community. It might be a senior community living on fixed incomes, maybe even sitting on a very valuable piece of ground. And we identified, or we looked at a whole variety of online tools and strategies for identifying who these people are. The bottom line is there's a bunch of them out there. There isn't one that directly meets the CEA needs. Closest we found was one called the Healthy Places Index, which takes into account about 30 different factors, age, economics, demographics, et cetera. And one of the things in the report that we did for you is a map where they color code where are disadvantaged communities, under that standard. And you'll see that they're not proportional to all the cities. So we also identified, okay, if your city doesn't have identified disadvantaged communities on this map, here are some other criteria that you can use to identify who those communities are in your town. Again, they might be seniors on fixed income. There might be business communities. There might be nonprofits that are having trouble meeting the goals. There's a variety of ways you can do that. So that's a task left to each individual city to start with this and then to figure out what really is going to work in the community. Then we went into, okay, now that if you've identified the communities in your city that need some help, what are the options, available opportunities to actually provide help. And I'm not going to go through them all because there's a lot in the detailed report. What we put in your packet is the executive summary. And in the report, but we go through financial opportunities, granting opportunities, non-monetary opportunities. There's a lot of different ways that you can incentivize people to upgrade from the standard or least expensive option up to the 100% green. And I would encourage you to task the committees with what you want them to work on. That's probably the next that we'll talk. And I'll be happy to answer questions about this if you haven't.
Thank you very much, Dwight. Questions for Dwight? Christie?
No, I just wanted to say, you know, I've noticed over the years that you've just always stood up and raised your hand for all these volunteer positions, and you've done such a great job. It's already 2 years now you've been doing this, and you volunteer so much time. I've seen you in so many other positions. So we're really grateful for all of this because that's a lot of work that you do. And, you know, be happy if you continue on and stay on forever in that position.
Well, thank you. That's very kind. But working with this group was more fun than a sock full of monkeys, I got to tell you. All right, thanks.
The next ad hoc subcommittee to report is the Electric Vehicles Subcommittee. The chair is Kevin Norris, which we're very lucky to have on the Community Advisory Committee, but in particular in the subcommittee because of his expertise in electrical vehicle and infrastructure. The members of that subcommittee, and you'll notice you'll hear certain names. We have some Community Advisory Committee members that volunteered for more than one ad hoc subcommittee because they were passionate about the topic. They included Jennifer Kirschbaum, Dr. Don Mosier, Roger Davenport, and Tracy Reed. So Kevin.
Thank you, Barbara. Chair Decker, board members. As Barbara was saying, Kevin Norris representing the city of San Marcos. As part of the EV subcommittee mission statement, it has to do with education. And moving forward, I think it's really important that we somehow try to educate the community. We updated the website, the CEA website, but I think we need to do a little more than that, do some outreach. We need to get ahead of this. 2035, I think everybody knows that's the day, still today, that EVs will only be for sale here in California. I just feel we need to get ahead of the future gas stations here in California. And if we do that, we have get a relationship with the companies that are coming and installing these. I think we'd be better off. One of the other items I talked about at our last meeting was to maybe offer a discount for companies to come and set up chargers here. I was thinking the DC fast chargers, much like we have a Tesla charging station in San Marcos and a reduced cost for them. If we did that, it would incentivize owners to come and set shop up here in our area. But I was also thinking about level 2 charging. Level 2 is a tough industry, very low kilowatts, and that's how they make their money, by selling the power. So if they had a little incentive to come here and install these stations, I think we could really use them. Workplace charging, we like to encourage that, especially where I work. We like, because that's the overgeneration of EV. I know it's a little different with the CEA, but if they opted up for 100% renewable energy, that we could reduce costs for them a little to help them come here. Along with education comes the incentives that are out there, state, federal, as well as the benefits of owning an EV, the cost versus buying gas. I mean, gas these days, I don't even know. I own an EV. I think it's like $6 or whatever, $5.50 a gallon. That's $150 a week, I'm being told. I charge my car for like 20. So the benefits right there are worth it. So I think getting that education out there and talking to people about benefits. Like I said, as far as the CEA is concerned, it's getting ahead of the curve and not just waiting for people to come and hit our grid and demand power at whatever. If we got ahead of this, I think it would help as far as us supplying the CEA supplying the power to these companies. Couple other items we had was trying to see if we can work with each city to get a member from each city to identify property within the city boundary, maybe work with their sustainability manager to help. We could do some work ahead of time for a lot of the grants that are coming out. Debbie has some coming out. We have 4 grants that we've been awarded where I work in UC San Diego. The equivalent of that is the infrastructure that we're putting in. It's about 25 cents on the dollar. That's what we're paying for. We have over 300 level 2s, 13 DC fast chargers, and we're getting ready to install another 600. And we're trying to stay ahead of the curve. We have like 2,000 EVs on campus every day, and we only have 300 chargers. So, and that's going to happen all over. Councilmember Musgrove, you mentioned upgrading panel sizes, cooktops. That's going to come, especially with these chargers. And how do we do that? How do we get ahead of SDG&E being able to bring in the service, the circuits? That's something I think we need to study and stay ahead of. Not everybody will be able to afford it. That's why we need public, especially with apartments or condos, or if you don't have a place to park your car every night. So we encourage the EVs and how it's going to affect CEA. And I think we can get ahead of that by working with the companies. We asked for a grant writer as well. Grant writers, as everybody knows, they're worth their weight in gold. I'm told, I don't know if it would be a staff position or if it would be per grant that we go after. Either way, I'd like to work with that grant writer if that's possible and get some of the grants. NEVI's coming out, the highways, the 15, the 78, the 5, those are the corridors that they're looking at to install. But I encourage homeowners as well. The new houses, we have a lot of new housing going up in each one of our cities per arena, and they're supposed to be installing capability. So I'd like to work on that too, to get these chargers installed, not just to make ready. So those are the couple of the items that we as the subcommittee came up with. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Any questions for Kevin? Really appreciate the report. Good job.
Thank you, Kevin. And I would just like to comment that don't underestimate the impact that Kevin has in our community with the work he does at UCSD, some of the major projects, the sustainability that UCSD serves up as a model for the rest of the region. And seeing that they're getting ahead of this so quickly is phenomenal. And we have Kevin also serving as our city on our special project that we have to bring us in compliance with our GHG goals. So thank you again, Kevin.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair. In our last ad hoc subcommittee that will report out is our school outreach subcommittee, chaired by Deborah Shade, and she'll be providing the report. Other members include Linda Daniels, Paige DeCino, Mo Lasaizadeh, Jennifer Kirschbaum, and Nancy Oshley.
All right,
Deborah.
thank you, Barbara. Good afternoon, Chair Drucker and members of the board. My name is Deborah Shade, and as you know, I'm serving on the Community Advisory Committee. I've been serving on that committee representing Solana Beach since we were formed. I'm also board president of the Solana Beach School Board, and I've served in that role as an elected official for 21 years. So when this became a viable committee with support from the Community Advisory Council, they asked me to be the chair, and I have bring a lot of a very strong lens into this conversation. So this committee came about when we were in discussion about how do we engage our underserved communities? How do we reach them? Many of them are very, very difficult to reach. And one of the areas that the group felt was very strong was to engage our schools and make them and engage them in being 100% clean energy schools, have some kind of program where that's very noticeable to the community that that school is participating in that, and how important that would be also to engage our youth as we are rolling out curriculum in California for environmental stewardship. How would that be our next level of work that we do when the Community Clean Energy Alliance gets big and gets viable and we have money to put into programs that advance our communities? So we identified three major areas. One is a specific concern of our local suburban school districts, and that's the volatility of the rates that they've had been receiving from SDG&E and how difficult that is for school budgets and probably your cities as well to manage. And it's devastating for many of our suburban school districts. So there's that, you'll see that in our report as well as one of the areas that we identified, and whether or not that could be something we could roll into a 100% clean energy school program. You would get some sort of stabilization rate that would go along with your ability to participate at the 100% clean energy choice. Another one is to get a stronger understanding. Many schools have solar, but they don't understand the savings. They don't understand how it works across the system. And so we see that that might be an opportunity to work with schools and certainly local governments to understand that energy savings and how that translates within their system. The other one was investigate the idea of providing resources on the website. All the grants, there's many, many grants available, as you probably know, for buses, solar, many things, but connecting the dots and being a resource for our local schools in that area as well. And then lastly, we see our students, if you've been at a school board meeting lately, you've probably seen kids get up and tell their school board, we want solar, we want you to do this for us, we want you to save our environment. The voice is really coming from our students. So trying to figure out a way that we would possibly work in connection with environmental clubs on campus to have student ambassadors throughout our cities, and just another way to educate our community and engage our families. So we're very new. We just started probably in the last 6 months. So we don't have a lot to share, but it was certainly supported by our our Community Advisory Committee, and I'm very excited to bring, something looking forward that would be a program that we could support that would give back to our youth and our community. Okay.
Thank you very much, Deborah. Any questions for Deborah?
I'll just make a quick
Go
comment.
ahead.
Thank you so much, Deborah. I'm really glad to see the inclusion of schools and parents and students into, making sure that everybody's included. And I'm really excited in Vista for us to be rolling out new community school sites. And I think that would be, some of the best sites to launch off some of these programs. So thank you.
Yeah, that's great. Right. Well, thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Barbara, anything else on this?
Not on this item, Chair.
Great.
Thank you.
Very good. We go on to item 10, which is to provide direction related to changes in the Community Advisory Committee structure, approval of Community Advisory Committee meeting schedule and work plan, and appoint Community Advisory Committee chair. So Barbara, I guess you're up for this again.
Yes, thank you, Chair. The item before the board for consideration has three different actions. This is an item that comes up every year in January. We relook at the Community Advisory Committee's work plan and their schedule, which are both by policy set by this board. Of course, the work plan can always be adjusted by the board throughout the year. If something new comes up and the board would like to have the Community Advisory Committee consider it and weigh in on it. The three items before the board for recommendation is to provide direction related to changes in the Community Advisory Committee structure, approve the 2024 Community Advisory Committee meeting schedule and work plan, and appoint the Community Advisory Committee 2024 chair. The current Community Advisory Committee structure is made up of 2 appointees from each member agency plus 1 chair for a total of 15 sitting members. At our meeting last year, the board requested that we come back at this meeting to consider, should we change the makeup and reduce it from the current 15 active seated members? The other question was, should the chair of the Community Advisory Committee be from a different member agency than the chair of the board? At our last Community Advisory Committee, we did pose the question to the committee with regards to what are their thoughts on whether or not, how we're doing in terms of having a committee of the size that we were, and requested their input to bring to the board for consideration as you consider this question. The input received was that they preferred to keep the current structure and suggested to postpone any change to the Community Advisory Committee makeup until Clean Energy Alliance has been up and running longer and has more experience in the communities. The larger size CAC facilitates effective subcommittee structure. As you saw, they have various subcommittees and can have 5 or 6 members and have a real good effective research and then working together. Reducing to 1 active community advisory committee from each community would result in what they considered ineffective outreach to the communities, having just 1 community advisory committee, for example, for the city of Oceanside or Escondido, and having to, potentially be at different events, and maybe there's competing events. So having more than 1 would allow them to have a larger reach. And Chair, would you like to consider each one individually, or would you like me to go through the entire presentation on all 3 items?
I think it would make sense if we do discuss them. So though,
Okay.
are there questions for Barb on this specific item?
And I do have, I'm sorry, one more slide with regards to staff input on the size. And then staff also wanted to share with the board our experience over the past year with the current makeup of the Community Advisory Committee. Our experience was that it worked well, particularly with regards to having a large pool of volunteers to assist at events. And sometimes, frequently, the events are in evenings and weekends, and it provided an ability for us to have sufficient coverage. Our current Community Advisory Committee membership is very active and enthusiastic, and I think it would be disappointing if any of them were to be changed to an alternate or not have the opportunity to serve. We didn't have any administrative issues or impacts related to the size. And it resulted then if there was 1 CAC member from a particular member agency that wasn't available for a meeting, the city still had representation on the CAC at the meeting. And it was rare to have all 15 members actually present at every meeting. So staff does support the request from the CAC to maintain the current structure.
Great. Are there questions for Barb on this? Are there any members of the public that wanted to speak on this issue?
We do have 1 speaker for item 10, Dwight Warden.
Thank you. I support the recommendations from the CEC as Murphy's subtext. If it ain't broke, fix it until it is a mistake that we can make, leave it alone. I would suggest you consider, however, adding to your own agenda a mid-year update report from the committee so that you're not a year,
Very
that's
good.
working well.
Thank you. Are there any comments from the board on this?
You stole a little bit of my thunder, Dwight. I like to say the wheel was already round enough. We don't need to make it any rounder. It's in a time, and I think I'm not speaking for the board, but I think we all have our issues with trying to find volunteers that are willing to come out. And we have such a dedicated group. I'm very proud that the 2 that we selected from San Marcos are so actively involved. And I think that probably goes across the board with everyone. And commitments being what they are, that we are still able to sustain this, form the subcommittees, and put forward good reports like this is commendable. I support the staff's recommendation.
Katie?
I am supportive as well. I really believe that many hands make the work light, and we get to see more robust activities from our subcommittees with multiple participants from each city. So thank you for serving, and I think that will take the recommendations, I hope.
Any other comments? Go ahead, Christy.
I definitely support that. I'm amazed at the enthusiasm from all of our members and that continues year after year. So thank you so much for that. I think that I might have been the one, when we were smaller, it was sort of a interesting thing if the chair was from the same city as the alternate board of the
Christine,
CAC.
We're going to talk about.
Oh, we're
that
not on
next.
to that issue yet?
Yes,
Okay,
right.
sorry. Okay.
Okay. So do we need a motion on this or can we just have consensus?
For this case, there's no change in the current policy. There does not need to be a separate motion or an action.
Okay.
Consensus should be fine.
Yeah, I would agree with Ed and Dwight and Christie. Really happy the way this community advisory committee is working and the enthusiasm of the members. So I don't, as Dwight suggested, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So we'll go on to the next item on this.
Yeah, and the next item that Board Member Becker started to introduce was the other question that the board requested to bring back up was whether there's the policy, there should be a policy that states that the Community Advisory Committee Chair, which currently is an alternate board member appointee, whether it should come from a city different than the board chair. And I don't have input or suggestions. I turn it back over to the board.
Are there any members of the public that want to comment on this?
We do not have any other speakers for this item.
Okay. So what is the board pleasure on this?
Well, I was just going to say quickly that it doesn't matter to me anymore. When we were smaller, I think it made a difference, but now we're large enough that it doesn't matter if they're from the same city to me. It doesn't matter if it's an alternate board member or a board member. Anybody that wants to stand up and raise their hand is fine with me.
Ed?
I think it's just happenstance right now in the current situation with 14 board members and then 7 alternates CAC members and 7 alternates for the board that we happen to have 2 from the same city is more the anomaly than anything other than just this is how it happened to work out. And I think it's commendable that Dwight has been doing this, standing by to fill in for Chair Druger and then also working with the CAC. So I don't think this is something we need to fool with.
Katie or Esther, any comments? Christian?
I think if we haven't seen any problems with it, we could always address it in the future if we do see that there is a conflict of interest or there is issues that are arising from that. But as of now, I'm fairly new, but you guys seem to have faith that's been running smoothly. So I trust you. And if that changes, if the situation changes, then obviously we'll address it. So thank you
Very
guys for all
good.
the work.
And I'll just make one comment to say that, I'm very grateful for the work that Dwight has done chairing. And if there's anyone else who is interested in that leadership, right, then, speak up, put yourself out there, get into the mix of the work that these committees are doing, ask those questions. Because I really don't want to take away from the enthusiasm and the passion and the good work that is happening for some kind of formality when I do trust that it's being done in good faith and the leadership is very valuable.
Great, thank you. So moving on to schedule work plan to be set by board, right?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. The proposed schedule and work plan that's for consideration by the board represents input provided by the Community Advisory Committee at our last meeting. The recommendation is that meetings stay on every other month on the even months, with the exception of this first upcoming meeting, which would have been next week, that meeting occur on March 7th. The Community Advisory Committee did request that we change the time to start at 1 p.m. instead of 2 p.m. To accommodate scheduling and traffic. They did request topics to be placed onto the work plan, including the concept of establishing a clean energy recognition program that to be brought forward to the board for consideration. reviewing, taking a look at the Oceanside and Vista marketing outreach strategy, and then volunteering to assist with events that are being coordinated for that outreach to the communities. And then they will be considering establishing new ad hoc subcommittees for the coming year. We also bring forward the draft of the budget, review it with the Community Advisory Committee and ask for input. And to the extent that there may be potential funding for programs, we would seek their input for recommendation to the board for those consideration. And we will also be bringing an update forward on our Solar Plus solar and battery storage program. And then was made mention of our website. So we will do a formal review of the website and gather input from the Community Advisory Committee for updates. And then we will be adding to the, with board direction, we will add an item for reporting back to the board at mid-year. That does conclude my presentation. Chair, happy to take comments or updates or changes to the work plan.
Any questions for Barb on this work plan? Go ahead, Katie.
I did have one question. I'm so glad that the community advisory committees are actively involved in these items. I'm really looking forward to the clean energy recognition aspect. I think that that will be, a great celebration and marketing tool. But if you could go back to that previous slide, I had one question. So for the identifying ad hoc and CAC subcommittees in March, are we expecting the subcommittees to stay the same, or do we have a sense that we would be adding additional subcommittees?
The subcommittees that just reported were ad hoc, so they ended at the end of 2023. So in 2024, there will be new subcommittees. There was some initial discussion at our last meeting that potentially there will be new ad hoc subcommittees that come out of those committees. So for example, the EV electric vehicle one, was a lot of discussion about, you heard about infrastructure and identify. So that could be a new ad hoc subcommittee that's specifically now related to EV infrastructure within our territory.
Great. So it sounds like they're evolving to continue to do business very efficiently. Thank you so much.
Very good. Are there any other comments? Go ahead, Christian.
I appreciate, the suggestions. I think this looks great. Just one thing. So I'm not sure if other members here, but I still work in the morning. I work part-time. Would it be possible to my suggestion would be to move it to 1:30 to 3:30. If not, that's okay. Obviously I could adjust, but if you're all amicable to that.
So this, thank you, Board Member Garcia. This schedule would only be for the Community Advisory Committee and not the board.
Okay.
Thank
you. I think we need to have a motion to approve this. Are there any members of the public that want to comment on this? Okay, do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay, will you call the roll, Kaylin?
Board Member Garcia,
Aye.
Board Member Becker, Board Member Musgrove,
Aye.
Board Member Sanchez, Board Member Bhat Patel,
Aye.
Vice Chair Melendez,
Aye.
Chair Druker.
Yes. Okay, final is to appoint a vice chair. Would anybody like to suggest a vice chair, or do we want to reappoint Dwight?
I have spoken to my alternate board member and he's unable to do it. So I'm very happy with appointing our alternate board member Warden if everybody else is in agreement.
I think that's a fantastic idea.
I would be in agreement.
Okay, do I have a motion on that, please?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Will you please call the roll?
Board Member Garcia,
Aye.
Board Member Becker,
Yes.
Board Member Musgrove,
Aye.
Board Member Sanchez, Board Member Bhat Patel,
Aye.
Vice Chair Melendez,
Aye.
Chair Druker.
Yes. Condolences, Dwight. Okay, you didn't walk back fast enough. We appreciate again that you working on this. It provides some continuity. With that, we have two other items on the agenda. Are there any board member requests for future agenda items?
Well, I'll just make a comment that I've been speaking with Barbara about the launch for Vista and events, obviously community events that are already happening that we want to have a presence at. But especially making sure that we celebrate and recognize the launch. And if there are any needs to discuss those events, then I would like those to be added to the agenda.
Very good. So on February, we will have a full presentation. I assume we were going to have that anyway, but we will have a full presentation on what we're doing to make sure everybody in Vista and Oceanside does not opt out.
Yes, I know we're ready for it. So I'm
Great.
expecting it to go really well.
Very good. I want to return now. This is Barbara Boswell's last meeting as our CEO. And so at this point, anybody would like to make any comments, official comments, that would, I'm sure, be appreciated. So Christy, you've been serving us the longest, so.
Love to go first. So Barbara, thank you for taking the chance with the city of Solana Beach to be the first and the smallest community choice energy program in San Diego County. And thank you for your expertise and your leadership and your guidance in the expansion to what is now Clean Energy Alliance. You attended numerous city council meetings, town halls, environmental conferences, farmers markets. You spoke to reporters and members of the public. I even asked you to talk to people that had trouble with their bill, and you happily did so. And I really have no doubt at all that you are the reason that Clean Energy Alliance is now 7 cities strong, and that these cities are now all on track to meet their climate action plan goals. Thank you for being patient with me and with board members and with the residents, answering the same but very tough questions over and over and over and over again. And finally, thank you for always remaining positive and downright cheerful, despite the obstacles that these CCAs we face every day. So you will be missed.
I wish I had $1 for every time Barbara flexed her schedule so that I could zoom in with her. You've been extremely adaptive and very helpful. A lot of hand holding, and I know I'm speaking for more than just myself here. You're fantastic. You've really adapted well from a single city entity moving out to where we are right now. Effectively at capacity, if we're looking at North County, there may be other options, but that'll be Greg's to manage. And just speaking a little bit over you, Barbara, Greg, you have small shoes to fill, but those shoes have walked a lot of miles and a lot of hours. So Barbara, I wish you well, and Greg, I wish you luck.
Great. Priya?
Yes, thank you. And Barb, I have to say it's been such a pleasure to get to know you over the course of the last few years. I know when I first started, it was awesome to have somebody who, without judgment, would explain and break down very complex issues that we deal with on this particular board. And so I have to say that, of course, you're an expert in this field, but for those of us that are just diving into it, you make us feel like we know the subject as well. And so I have to say that, you know, that and on top of everything else that everyone said, you always made yourself available. Your kindness, your generosity, and of course, your expertise are greatly valued. And we're going to miss you and wishing you the best for what's next. Thanks again for your service.
Katie? Oh, Esther, go ahead.
No, I wanted to make this is announcements too, right?
Okay, well,
Yeah.
okay,
or
go ahead.
comments. So I wanted to let the board know that last night's city council meeting for the city of Oceanside, the city entered into a contract, energy services contract with NG, $21 million contract for the design and construction of certain energy conservation facilities and measures. And I was pretty happy about that. That includes, of course, solar, but pretty happy about that contract.
Great. Katie?
Thank you. Thank you, Barb. You are a very smart lady, and we would not be where we are as an organization without you. Thank you for supporting the vision of this board to create a more sustainable future. And if working and wrangling elected officials wasn't hard enough, you were also there to provide succinct and helpful information about some of the toughest energy and climate topics of our day. So incredible to work with you. Definitely have grown as a chairperson since working with you, and I appreciate your leadership and I wish you all the best.
Christian?
I think my first meeting was when you announced you were stepping down. And my now second meeting is you stepping down. So, I mean, you've been, in that time though that we've talked, I can see why everybody's inspired by you. I mean, you've already put me in a good position. And I see that you've done that with numerous other people. So, I think you're a great mentor. So, thank you.
Barbara, really appreciate all the work that you've done over the past years and helped all the board members in terms of the complexity of these issues. For most of us, this is brand new. We do water rates sometimes, we do wastewater. Energy is totally different than any other thing that we've ever worked with. So really appreciate all the information, the hand-holding, et cetera, that you've done with us. And we know that we're not going to be, we know that we are going to be seeing you in the future as we continue on our path of growth, and look forward to, I hope you have a great time in your semi-retirement, shall we say. But I know that our paths will cross in the future. So with that, two things. One is our next meeting is going to be Leap Day, February 29th. So we get an extra day this year for that. And so that's exciting that we get to be here for that day, right? And also there is cake and coffee in the back for a celebration. So with that, we are adjourned.